G'day, I'm Paul, BMW iX. I know we've reviewed this before, but this is the bee's knees version. It is the fast one, and I'm really keen to see what a fast BMW EV actually feels like. The last sort of proper fast BMW EV I drove was the i8, and that thing was sensational, but it was a plug-in hybrid, whereas this is a full electric vehicle. Now, this is called the BMW iX M60. It's priced at just over $220,000. It competes with things like the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, the Jaguar I-Pace, the Audi e-tron, and if this is too expensive, the entire range kicks off at just over $135,000. Today I'm going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes on the screen. If you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we drive a fun car like this. Now let's talk about the exterior. You've got 9 colours to pick from. They're all free except 2 metallic colours that are $2,600. So the M60 looks a little different to the other versions of the iX. It has an M Sport package on it and a few M badges littered around the car that I'll show you in a second. But look, I've got to say, this design is growing on me. I know, but it is growing on me. And I think that this is the thing with BMW. People are just outraged at first, but then when they actually get a bit of time to look at these cars and they come in the right colours with some of the highlights that this has, actually starts growing on a lot of people. So let me know if you're one of those down there. So I mentioned in our first review of this that this has a self-healing grille here. So in addition to the heating elements within the grille there, if you do get a stone chip or a scratch on that, if you apply a bit of heat to it, it actually self-heals. So it's a special material that does that, which I think is pretty cool. Down here you have active vanes for the cooling of the battery pack. Up here you have a little device that pops out to shoot your front camera with high pressure washer jet. And then over here you have the filler for your washer fluid, and that's because this bonnet is a non-serviceable item. So it does open, but for a general consumer, you're not going to be opening that. There's nothing interesting under there for you. Over here, you have a set of BMW laser headlights. Now, BMW is actually phasing these out. If you had a look at our BMW i7 walk around, if you haven't seen that yet, you can click up here to watch that. I actually explain BMW is getting rid of laser headlights and going down the path of full LED. And the i7 actually has Swarovski crystals built into the headlights as well, so they get a bit of a shimmer when there is an LED sort of powered behind them, which I think is pretty cool. So down the bottom here, you have a different color for this little section. Obviously, you've got body color over here, and this is all black with a little scoop on the side here for aero. Whip around to the side of the car with me. Down here, you're going to find a set of whopping 22-inch alloy wheels. Now, I love this gold highlight package. So you can see here the M logo is gold. You've got gold inserts here on the wheels, including gold around the side of the car as well. I think teamed with this body color, it looks so nice. It really cuts a beautiful line with all those highlights. Behind here, you get a set of M Sport brakes as standard. So they measure 340 mil in terms of rotor size with 4 piston calipers up the front. Then you have a similarly sized rotor at the back of the car. This is a heavy vehicle. It's a little over 2.5 tons or a little under 2.6 tons. So it is a lot of weight to be moving around and also slowing down as well. So I'll be keen to see how that performs. Buried under there, you've got air suspension as well and a ground clearance of 180 millimeters. So up the top here, you have this gold element that whips around to the side. You have an LED indicator built into the wing mirror, camera there on the side, and normally under here you'd find a puddle lamp. But what BMW does, they have their magic carpet that gets put down the side of the car. That's nestled into here, so that projects out onto the road there. It gives you a little bit of a sort of carpet to walk on as you get towards the car. Up the top here, not only do you have a panoramic glass roof, this is the biggest panoramic glass roof to ever feature on a BMW, and it also has the ability to go between sort of transparent and also translucent with the push of a button, which I reckon is pretty sweet. No privacy glass, which I thought was odd on top spec. I would have thought that would be standard. These door handles are interesting as well. So right here, I can see there's like a rock that's sitting in there. So I don't know what the purpose of these door handles is, and a lot of other BMW products, they sit flush, whereas here you put your finger in there and you can see here that it obviously collects things as you go. So it must be an aero thing. iX here on the side. This is your charging port. I'll run you through that a little later on. Come around to the back of the car. So this is the rear. I reckon this is probably the best angle of the iX. It really just looks nice and chunky and meaty out on the road. And I love, again, that gold theme on the badges. So big M badge there with 60 after it. And then iX on this side here. Yeah, it's just a cool looking setup. So similar to the front there, you have a washer for your camera at the back here, so that pops out and gives that a little squirt. A little bit of a diffuser down the bottom there as well. And LED taillights are a little bit hard to see there, but you can see they frost nicely, and you can see the indicator when that's running as well. Boot lip spoiler there too. So let me know what you reckon about the design in the comments section. Do you think it is good looking? Is it growing on you like it is growing on me? Let me know what you reckon down there. So we're inside the iX. We'll start off with the key. You've got the BMW logo there, which is the lock button. And on the side, you have unlock, boot, the button here for ambient lighting, and then it's blank on the back. A little bit of M colorage there as well, because it is an M vehicle. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket, and then you have the start stop button just here. So this interior, I think it is absolutely stunning. While you may dislike that exterior, this interior really does look fantastic. So you have that floating curved display up the top there. You have premium materials as far as the eye can see. I even love this sort of fabric material down the bottom here as well. And they've got very minimalist with the buttons. So you'll notice things like your climate functions are all here on the screen as opposed to being banked down here. So I think it actually is a really nice setup, and I love the seats. They just look sensational. They're like a big armchair, so very impressed with the way that looks. There's wood here as well. Now, in terms of your touch points, here in the center, that's sort of nice and soft on the door as well. How soft are they? Well, we've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, what about your build quality? So this all feels extremely nice and solid. And then door slam. This sounds a bit tinny, actually. I did notice that earlier. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's got a bit of tinniness to it. Now let's talk infotainment. So I'm going to preface this by saying we actually took a deeper dive of the infotainment system here in the iX in our previous iX review, and you can click up there to watch that. Today I'll just run you through the basics just so you get an idea of what it's like. So it uses iDrive 8, which is the latest version of BMW's infotainment system. This center screen here is about 15 inches in size, which is awesome. So you get these pillars here, and that's what you scroll through. It's all nice and quick and easy to use. A couple of interesting functions. You have the interior camera, so when you activate that and log in with your BMW ID, it actually uses this camera up here to take a selfie of you and the car. In the future, this is actually going to be used for things like intrusion detection, so they can start recording if someone does break into your car, which I think is really clever technology. On the audio front, you have AM, FM, and DAB digital radio. Now, that is all plumbed as standard through a 30-speaker Bowers & Wilkins sound system. This is actually a 4D sound system, so it has vibrators in the seat, and I think also the floor as well. So when you do crank the speakers, it actually vibrates your back and the floor. So it's just ridiculous stuff. Now, smartphone mirroring, you do actually have satellite navigation built into there as well. But in terms of smartphone mirroring, it comes with both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Both of those are wireless. So I'll show you what Android Auto looks like first. So there it is there. So it integrates within that full screen. And then when you go back to that home menu, the maps move over to that side. But it's all nice and fast and very easy to use. And this is what Apple CarPlay looks like. So pretty decent setup there. I just love how sharp that is. This is like space age tech inside the car here. Now, once you're done with playing with all that, you do also have a screen ahead of the driver, so that's just under 13 inches in size. Now, this thing's pretty cool because you can configure a number of different things in the center there. What you can then also do is adjust the layout as well as you go. So they've really just thought about everything here and done a fantastic job getting it all customized and looking exactly how the driver wants it to look. Let's talk safety tech. So you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have an auto dimming rear vision mirror, blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirror. You have a lane departure warning with a lane keeping assistant. It also has a semi-autonomous steering function, and we're going to test that out later on to see how well it works up against our banked oval. You have rear cross traffic alert. You also have front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'll show you what the 360 camera looks like. We'll hit this button just here. It's actually really good, so I can clearly see the suitcase down there. The 360 view is not too bad. It is a little warped around the edges there, but you can then select the cameras as you go as well. So it'll adjust the view that you're seeing, which I reckon is pretty cool. Over on the side here, you have different views as well. So this is just your sonar view. then in addition to that, you can go full screen on that. And one other cool feature as well, you actually have your buttons here for the washing functions that I showed you earlier, but you also have a car wash view, so you can actually line up where your wheels are going in those tracks so you don't scratch your precious M wheels. So what's your connectivity like? Well, you have 2 USB-C ports down here with a 12-volt outlet. You have a wireless phone charger as well. In terms of storing your phone, can kind of live anywhere. There's stacks of room, including this neat little phone holder up the top there as well. One thing I did find this morning that I didn't really like is the position of the cup holder. So if you do have a coffee, you kind of have to lean down and across this section to get the coffee out. So it really, yeah, it's just not a good spot. This sort of needed to be a little further back, or the cup holders up the top there or something. But yeah, not a huge fan of that. But they do have teeth down there in the bottle holders, which is good. Bottle fits inside the door as well without any dramas. Let's see how it goes with our big bottle. That fits in too. Good news, excellent. Other storage, you have this big old center console here. In addition to that, you have a little bit of storage space down here and a glove box down the bottom here as well, although that looks extremely tiny. So comfort is important. What have you got here in terms of your comfort features? So there's quad zone automatic climate control. And like I mentioned, you don't have any shortcut buttons here. So you have to actually go into a climate menu here on the screen and activate your functions up here. I don't love it. It's kind of a bit clumsy and looks a bit full on at times. So you can just do auto and set your temperatures or use voice commands, but I just don't know what was wrong with just having a couple of knobs there. On the seats have full electric adjustment, and you do it here on the door using these crystal button selectors. So you go forwards, backwards, backrest can go forwards, backwards. You can lift the front, you can lift the back. You also have lumbar adjustment, and in addition to that, you also have massage function as well, which I think is fantastic. Steering is adjusted both tilt and reach electrically, which is good news, and passenger seat is also electrically adjustable as well. And on our reach test, this stuff is actually quite hard to reach on that side of the screen, so you do have to use the iDrive controller, which can be a little clumsy for things like your smartphone mirroring, which tends to be a bit all over the place. So yeah, it is a little bit of a stretch here to reach that side of the screen. Now, just before I shut the door here, I love this exposed carbon shell that you can see every time you open and close the doors. I think that is absolutely cool. So once you're inside, let's talk about room first. Have a look at this. I have a mountain of room here. So leg, toe room, headroom, it's all fantastic. So this is exactly what you want from a big SUV like this. It's on a wheelbase of 3 meters, so it is pretty decent and chunky, and it means that you're getting stacks of room inside the cabin. This is where your other 2 zones of climate control are. You have air vents down here and also on the B pillar as well. Hooks everywhere if you're doing to store a coat or other sort of bits and pieces. 4 USB-C points, 2 in the back of each of these seats with a little holder here for your devices. Map pocket there as well. Look at all this room. So because this is a flat floor, you actually have stacks of room here. So if you do end up in the second seat here in the second row, it means you're not going to be too stiff there in terms of leg room. Center armrest pops down and gives you 2 cup holders there, so you can fit a bottle in there pretty easily. Bottle fits inside the door without any dramas at all. You have ISOFIX points on the 2 outboard seats with this clever little cubby to hide them. And then you have 3 top tether points as well. I also love with the seats here in the second row how this edge section is padded as well, so you can just lean into here and have a bit of a kip as well if you want, which I reckon is pretty cool for the BMW iX. And finally, our window test. So it is auto up and down. Let's see how far down it goes. That is so ridiculous. That is so silly. I don't know why you'd even... Anyway. So let's talk cargo space. Let's have a little sticky beak. You've got a powered tailgate. So in here you have 500 litres of cargo space available. There's a 12-volt outlet up there, plus some hooks on the sides as well. Beneath the cargo floor, you have a tyre repair kit, cable storage, not really much else. Actually not too bad of a space, but it's not like a Model Y where it's nice and deep and sort of cavernous. It's really taken up by things that you would need to carry around with you, so keep that in mind. Also, by the way, it's here if you do have the boot open and you're pulled over on the side of the road. People can still see you given the taillights are integrated into this section. I will show you what it looks like with our bags in there. So there's that bag, and then our suitcase. Yeah, look, it's okay. I don't know, it just feels like a small space for some reason. I don't know whether it's this cargo blind, but it doesn't look like a huge amount of storage capacity. You can increase the size of the space though by dropping your second row out of the way. So that increases that to 1750 litres and almost makes it a flat floor to load things in. Now, before we go for a drive on, I'll run you through the charging options. So this has both AC and DC charging. And in addition to that, you have a 111 kilowatt hour battery. It can charge at a peak of 195 kilowatts on DC and up to 11 kilowatt three-phase AC. So pretty decent options there. And with the 195 kilowatt DC charging, it actually hits that peak and sits there for a while. So it is a pretty decent setup. And that all results in a WLTP driving range of just under 600 kilometres. So we have just hit the road in the iX. Let me start off by telling you how much power and torque this makes. It is genuinely ridiculous. So just under 500 kilowatts of power and 1,100 Newton meters of torque. I mean, that is clinically insane. It does weigh a lot, so it's almost 2.6 tons. So it's not like you're moving around a 1,000 kilo go-kart, but that is still a stupendous amount of power and torque to get this thing moving. So that's all sent through two electric motors. One sits on the front axle, one sits on the rear axle. And they produce 190 kilowatts of power and 360 kilowatts of power respectively, front and rear. So it gives you a bit of an idea of how much meat you have to play with there. And the interesting thing is when you are driving this, at the moment it's just in comfort mode, and I'll run through some of the ridiculous names here for the drive modes in a second, but when you are in the comfort mode, it is really nice and progressive and gentle. It really doesn't do anything too stupid. If you want to do your EV stuff, you can just punch the throttle and it literally puts you inside the boot. But outside of that, it is really nice and gentle. One thing I'm not a fan of though here is the regen modes. They're okay, but for me to change between like the light to hard settings, I have to go through the menu to faff around with that. I do have it in the hardest setting at the moment, and when I roll out of the throttle, it is quite aggressive in terms of how hard it slows. And if I put this down into B mode, it will come to a full stop. But like a lot of other cars in this segment, it kind of rocks a little bit when it comes to a full stop. It doesn't actually engage the brake pedal like it does in a Tesla. So just something interesting to take note of there. Now, what about your economy? So BMW claims a combined average of just under 25 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. We're currently sitting on 27.6, and that's over the past 1,000 kilometers. The issue with these press cars is that when people hop into these fast ones, they tend to drive them like idiots, and that, you can see that's obviously the case here. So 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. If this is a 110 kilowatt hour battery, you're only going to be getting about 350 to 400 Ks out of each charge, which is not great, but I think if you were to drive a little more sensibly, you'd see a far bigger figure than that. Okay, time to attack our sine waves. Let me just increase our pace a little bit here. Get up to 130. So these simulate overtaking in Australia on a dodgy road, and basically it's just a continuous set of undulations. So here we go here. Yeah, it feels pretty good. All nice and straightforward. This has adaptive damping under the skin there, so it really does take care of those imperfections pretty easily. And you can also adjust the height of the car using this button here, should you so desire, but probably no point faffing around with that. It does it all automatically for you. Now, I did mention the drive modes before, so if you press My Modes here, you've got Personal, Sport, Efficient, Expressive, and Relax. So as you move between those, it changes all the displays here, and it also kind of allows you to jump between the different drive settings as well. You can hear the noise change there. That's just ridiculous. And this is what Relax sounds like when I get on the throttle. Just a little bit funny. Let me pop it over into Sport mode. We'll see what it feels like. So instantly that becomes firmer. Our noise becomes louder. We'll tip it around our track here. All right, here we go. All right. Okie dokie. So I mentioned in our last iX review that, wow, this thing is so fast. I mentioned in our last iX review that it kind of felt like no other BMW in terms of the way that it drove, because it was more floaty and boaty than it was razor edged and sport focused. This actually brings some of that sport focus back, and you know, it is sitting far flatter than it did in the previous iX that we drove, but the pace that this thing is piling on when you get on the throttle is genuinely unbelievable. It pins you back in the seat like you wouldn't believe, and as we roll onto our back straight here, I'm going to pin that throttle down. Wow. It is not slowing down. It is absolutely ridiculous. There we go. Just nudged 200 there. I'm going to jump on the anchors. Holy crap. Yeah, it is crazy. Normally with EVs, they taper off a little bit, especially once you're moving and you're at highway speeds. This just feels like it just keeps giving. It is just insane. The brakes are fantastic as well. I did probably 3 hot laps here earlier and they didn't fade at all. We had issues with the Bentayga that we tested recently where we had brake fade in that, and these things, obviously you have regen here as well, but the brakes themselves are nice and meaty and chunky and they really hold everything together nicely. Here in the sport mode, you can also configure it into MDM, which gives you that limited stability control. I kind of wish you'd be able to switch everything off, but part of the issue is that on the back axle you have 4-wheel steering, and in sport mode it's helping sort of guide the car around the corner. I kind of don't really like it because it's artificial in its feeling, so when you do tip it in, it doesn't feel natural the way that it's going through the corner, and that rear wheel steering also makes it feel unnatural when the rear end comes out and you go to correct it. So I just wish that could be deleted and you just have normal steering. It does help with the turning circle and bringing that down, but I just want to have a normal setup. So time for 0 to 100. Now this has a claimed figure of 3.8 seconds, which is just insane when you think about it. It is enormous. So VBOX is on. Let me just pop it in the right setting and we'll go all the way up to 120 so we can see our overtake time as well. I'll put this into sport mode with stability control slightly switched off. And it also has launch control, so I'll show you how that works. You just basically push the brake and the throttle. It starts shaking the car randomly. It says launch control active and oh, Jesus. Holy shit. That is insane. Far out. Oh, look, I have driven faster cars in terms of 0 to 100 speed, but it is relative to the weight of the car as well. This thing is enormous, and the fact it can get up to speed that quickly is just ridiculous. So the time there was 4.1 seconds, so a little bit off the claim there, but ridiculous nonetheless. And 80 to 120 at 2.6 seconds shows you that a lot of the meat of this car is in that mid-range, which typically you don't get with EVs. So they've done a really good job there giving this the mid-range that it needs for overtaking and stuff like that. So they have some really impressive figures. So it's time for our reverse test. I've left this in sport. We'll see how quick it is. Here we go. Oh man. It like throws me through the windscreen. 45 kilometers an hour there in reverse. What about your road noise? Look, it is a little noisier here inside the cabin than the first iX that we drove. I think that predominantly may come down to the tyres, but to me, it is actually still really nice and quiet. Even at highway speeds on coarse chip roads, it is fairly subdued here in the cabin and you don't hear a great deal going on, which I think is excellent. Given you're paying this much money for it, you really want it to be nice and quiet, given it is an EV as well. Let's talk visibility. So I can see clearly down the front there really isn't any sort of high point there, so it's very visible, friendly out the front of the car. The wing mirrors are pretty small. I would have liked them to be a little bit bigger there, but you do get blind spot monitors built into those, which is great. Visibility out the back is okay. It's quite a small window there. So we'll talk about this steering wheel really quickly as well. When I was talking about handling before, we have a tight little course just in the center of our skid pan here that I run all the cars through and requires a lot of steering input. And one of the things that I also don't like in addition to that limited stability control just not being great is that the steering wheel is just really hard to handle for quick maneuvers and quick direction changes. So, I mean, obviously I say this all the time, but it's an SUV, you're probably not going to be driving this, you know, at a racetrack or something. But yeah, just for tight track driving, there's just too much going on here and it just makes it a bit of a handful to handle when it is sort of moving around in all sorts of different directions. Okay, so it is time to test some of the lane support autonomous driving systems here in the iX. So we're on our circular bowl here, it's banked as well, so we're going to test the 3 outer lanes and see how well it works. So I'll get this up to 70. So you can see the little steering wheel icon pop up there. It goes green to tell us that it's steering on our behalf. Now you have to always have control of the car, so it means that you've got to have your hands on the wheel at all times, but just want to see how well this works. So this bottom lane, it works perfectly fine, which is good. We'll jump up to this next lane. We'll give that a crack. Okay, wait for that steering wheel to go green. There it is there. So that's holding that lane really nicely and dead center too. So that is really impressive. Let's jump up to lane 3. This is the one that we've only had a couple of cars actually pass. So we'll see how well BMW's system works here. Steering wheel's gone green. That is sensational. It is holding it there perfectly. There's like no hesitation whatsoever. That is unreal. Seriously impressive setup there from BMW, passing in all 3 of our lanes. So the BMW iX M60, what do we think? Just like the first review that we did, I think this is the best luxury electric SUV you can buy on the market today. It is so nice inside the cabin there, and it is explosively quick behind the wheel. If you drive it gently, it actually has a decent amount of range for a vehicle this size. And look, I think that if you do want to step into an SUV that is electric, that is super nice, this really just ticks all of the boxes. And there is a little spider living on that as well. So let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about it? Do you think that you need this much performance, or would you just go for the 50i instead? Because it is $220,000+, so it is a little bit expensive. I'm keen for your feedback. And have you bought one? What's it like to live with? Let me know down there. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it, you share it with your mates, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.